Well, you don't get a chance to see these too often. This is a Sovtek Bassov Blues Boy. Like most of the amps I get, I don't know what's wrong with them until we open them up. So again, we get this one with just not working right. Well, without further ado, let's just open it. Fuck! Man, it's wintertime out here in Hanover County, so I got an 80,000 BTU fucking diesel heater over here in the shop. And every time that bitch cuts on, it scares the fuck out of me. That's pretty cool to be able to see the inside of one of these. Well, the fuses check out okay. Yeah, so flathead screws are holding this thing in place, so I had to use my capacitor discharge tool to take them all apart. So everything in here looks really well made. It's pretty awesome. I have not seen the inside of a Bassov Blues Boy before. It looks just like a MIG I saw a few years back. I'm surprised to see these IC capacitors here, these Illinois capacitors. These are not a very good quality part. I don't know if you guys can see this far in here. This amplifier is not using both sides of the first preamp tube. You've got the plate, the cathode, and the grid. There's nothing connected to them. And it actually looks like there is a wire in here. This is a cathode bypass cap that's from the schematics on a MIG. That's what it's supposed to be, but there's no wire there. It's either been cut off, modified, or maybe it was never like that to begin with. I don't know why somebody would take a gain stage out of an amp when honestly the low input, you know, should bypass straight to that stage. It looks like the low input just goes right to your volume knob, and this is so wacky. Well, an interesting little amp nonetheless. Looks like we've just got 4 220 UF capacitors here in the power section. I got 1,000, 1,000, 2 47s here, a 100, 100, and another 100. Really, those are all the electrolytics in the amp. If we replace all these, I think that should solve the fuse popping issue. I called the client up and just asked him what he wanted to do with this thing again, and he said convert it to a regular MIG, no problem, which is probably going to sound a lot better, because if it's missing, you know, half of a gain stage right there, that's no good. Well, let's just fast forward to where the parts get here. Bam! So I apologize for the loud ass heater in the background. Let's go over some of the mods we're going to do on this thing. First off, I'm going to replace all of these electrolytic caps. There is 4 here on the power section. There are 3 more caps here that are involved in smoothing DC for the plates on these preamp tubes over here. We've got 4 more over here. I think these are 2 47 UF, and they're 2, I guess these are 1000s. So we're going to change those out. Previous modifications that were done is the value here should probably be more like 0.1 UF if this was, you know, even just a regular MIG. So these have been lowered to 0.022, which is a traditional PI coupling cap for like a Marshall. This piece is not original too. As far as everything else I can see, nothing else has been touched, nothing else is modified. What I really don't like about this amp in its stock form is that it seems like it's just, it has a whole half of a triode here that's not even wired at all. So we are actually going to convert this thing to a cascading preamp. I'm also going to change these grid stoppers here to 5.6K. This amp's traditionally wired for 5881s or 6L6s. We're going to convert it to EL34s. So that means we're also going to change these the bias grid resistors from 150K to 220K. That's really it. And you know, I may add like a push-pull pod on the bass for like a resonance boost or something like that, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. We'll see what it sounds like when we're all done. I like that, the fact that that just lifts right up. That looks like there's a little spider cocoon or something was living in there. Alright, well, as you can see, we've got these replaced. That was super easy. I really like the underside of these is a big, thick, solid copper trace for all of this stuff. So that's fucking awesome. Go ahead and pull this circuit board. Some glue has worn off on this panel up here. I think something else we're going to change up too while I'm in here just sorting out some of the wiring here. There is a little cap right here that's standard on the MIG as well. One of the other mods we're going to do here is I'm going to pull this one out. There should be a cathode bypass cap right here. I don't know why they would why that part would be. It's already been cut out. This amp probably sounded pretty stale without it. So we're going to add something like that back in. In keeping with the tradition of white wires everywhere in this thing, I actually found some 2-conductor shielded wire with a foil drain here that I'm going to use as an input wire. So everything is going to be white. I think it's fucking hilarious. Because it's kind of frustrating when you first look inside one of these things and you can't tell where anything goes, but now that I've been in this thing for a few minutes, it doesn't look bad. Input jack setup is complete. This is actually just going to be the ground wire here. So that is enough to where we can mount this back now. When you're plugged into the high input, it's going straight into the grid of the first gain stage. When you plug into the low input, it is still going into the grid 1 of the first gain stage, but now you have a voltage divider which essentially cuts the signal down before it reaches that stage. I prefer this type of setup with a high-low jack system. This is similar to what you find on like some old Fenders and some old Marshalls. But I shield the wire all the way to the first stage, and I do this by using like a shielded pair like this. So you would actually tie both of the resistors all the way here towards the end and put it into this first grid. Now this is so you don't pick up any radio interference and your grid stopper is all the way up against the grid where it's most effective. Something else I noticed when poking around in here was that the value of this component here has been changed out to a 0.022. I think they're probably rolling off a little bit too much of something there, and I thought this connector was insulated, which it is clearly not after testing it with the meter. So I'm going to replace this with the stock value, which is a 0.01 UF.
With Mark Gormley.
Oh, that's my favorite line right here. Don't play around with my emotions, woman.
Very, very intense. We tried to make the music video that way as well.
Alright, initial tests are successful. Everything is sounding pretty good. Brief overview of what we did here. I shielded the input wires here. We put a traditional JMP style input jack wiring here. All of the capacitors, the electrolytics have been replaced on the power section, as well as over here for the DC filtering for the plates on these preamp stages. We've added a triode back into the circuit. We have replaced the grid resistors, or the grid stoppers, on all the output stages to 5.6K. I've replaced the coupling capacitors to 0.022 UF. These bias feed resistors I've changed to 220K from 150. That's really it. A couple other minor changes here. Right now, on the initial test, the bias was a bit low. So this piece right here, this 47K resistor, I'm going to go ahead and piggyback another one on top of that one and see if I can get the range where I want it. I piggybacked to 56K over that 47K bias resistor. I'm going to turn the bias pot down to make sure we don't put too much on those tubes at once. And let's see what our new range is here. So I think when I did my calculation, we were coming up with a bias voltage of 36 millivolts. So let's go ahead and turn this back up and see if we've got the correct range here. We're teetering right on 37, 38, so we have got this thing biased up. So my favorite part of any video is being able to play through the gear now that we've got it working again. So this is the modified Bassov Blues Boy. It sounds incredible. I'm really happy with the way this turned out. I hope the client is going to be stoked as well. So without further ado, let's just jump into it and play. So right now I'm plugged into the high input presence. It's about 3, bass on 3, mids almost all the way up, treble like about 7, something like that, and the master about on 3. That's a lot. It's a drastic difference than where it was before. Now remember, before, this thing stock is missing a gain stage. It's basically just sending the signal into what I believe was the cold clipper that just lops off a lot of your tone. Now our preamp gain is only about halfway up, so this thing gets a lot hairier. Pretty sick, pretty sick. So if we plug into the low input here, now we can turn the gain up to about 3. It's still got a lot of room to go up. I mean, that's pretty dirty for what essentially is the low input. Very responsive to the guitar volume differences here. So if I roll the guitar volume down just a little bit, let's say I'm right on 8. So we can actually clean it up more than that. input with the preamp gain turned all the way. Now, I know a lot of you guys using Sovteks out there are playing a lot of doom bands, so that begs the question, does it doom? Well, let's just turn everything up all the way and see what happens. Ignore that. We'll edit that part. We'll edit that part out. All right. And check that out, that's still relatively quiet. For how much distortion and gain you're getting off of it. Dial back some of these controls a little bit and go back to exploring a more rock setting. I mean, that's really where I think this mod shines the most, is probably more of the lower, closer to the more plexi type setting. And I feel like that's pretty reminiscent of a super lead there. So in conclusion, man, I'm really stoked about the mod. And this is actually going through a Peavey butcher cabinet at 16 ohms, and this cabinet possesses, this cabinet has Celestion G12K85s, but Let's pump a couple tones through this Marshall cabinet here with G12-65s and see what the sound difference is there. For more rock stuff, we're better off back here in the low input. All right, well, there you go. That's a modified Sovtek Bassov Blues Boy. I think it sounds pretty killer. You tell me what you think in the comments. Time. So how are we going to demo a MIG100B Bassov Blues Boy without actually playing bass through it? Well, of course not. So went ahead and got this American P bass that we'll play through. Now the master is up a little higher. The preamp gain is down like probably to about like 2 or something. It's just barely on. Any songs on bass. So right now we're using both pickups here. It's got an active preamp on it, and I've got nothing boosted. I've got the mids cut just slightly, and we're leaning a little harder on the bridge pickup, but that's about it. I think think that sounds really fucking cool for bass still. I was kind of worried that the gain would be too much and you wouldn't be able to get a good bass sound out of it. I moved back over to this Peavey cabinet because since the mids, it's more of a powerful speaker than the 65 by a little bit, and I think that's going to help with some of the retaining some of the low end. But I don't really have another bass cabinet to play this through today, but I think for the purposes of this demo, that's working fine. It's just showing that it's, in my opinion, that's still a reliable bass amp. It just might not be as modern sounding like a, you know, a newer SVT or something. You're not going to get low end that's going to knock the doors down, but I mean, I think that's going to keep up in a band setting fine. But let's have some fun with it and turn the fucking preamp distortion all the way up. But so cool. I'm digging this thing a lot. If you got one you want me to modify, send it to me. If you've got one you want to sell me, sell it to me. Like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you later.